TE Talks with Guides is a weekly podcast for lovers of history, travel, and all things Italian. Welcome back, everybody, to TE Talks, sponsored by Through Eternity Tours. I'm your host, Rob Allen, and on TE Talks, we get to talk with some of the most fascinating people who make a living out of being wonderful storytellers. Today, I'm very happy to share with you one of our great guides from the Naples area, but more importantly, the Amalfi Coast and Pompei and Herculaneum, Campania, all together. Ciao, Francesca.
Hi, Rob. Ciao. Hello,
How are
everyone. You? Fine, thanks. Really happy to be here with you and with all the people who are going to listen to us.
Yes, I'm happy to have you here just because I was so fortunate to have been able to see you at the end, the end of July, right at the beginning of August. You got to take me around to a wonderful place. That is going to be our discussion today. We're going to be talking about Herculaneum, or Ercolano, as the Italians would say. Herculaneum is this wonderful ancient town. And thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about it because you also have a lovely virtual tour. And because of that virtual tour, and it was so fantastic, I decided, because I was down in the area of Naples and the Amalfi Coast with some very, very dear friends and my partner, Andrea, I thought, what a great way to show them who we are by having them do one of our tours. And as opposed to Pompei, I thought that Herculaneum was perfect because I know that they didn't want to spend a long time on a tour. And I thought it would be just perfect to see because it is not as big as a Pompei is. Do you have, before we even get into that argument, there's a couple of things I want to talk about first. How long have you been working with Through Eternity? And tell us a little bit about yourself. And for those of you watching on the YouTube channel, yes, it is about 7 p.m. and I have a glass of Prosecco. Francesca only has water, but I have Prosecco, so I'm having a little cocktail. It's cocktail time. Okay.
So yes, just water. And so I have been a tour guide since 2009. And I like to tell my story because often people expect guides to be dreaming of being guides all their lives. So most of my colleagues, most of my friends, they often tell me, oh yes, when I was a child, I was in Pompei, I was walking in Naples, listening to stories. Really, I didn't do that. So I happened to be a tour guide. I was very confused until I started attending university, and I even started law school, because law school in Italy is what most of the people who really don't know what to do, let's try with that. It was a nightmare. After the first year, I quit and I was looking for something else. Then some kind of a blast in my life happened. And I started the Conservazione dei Beni Culturali, that back then, hard to say, but was quite long ago, was something really new. So something that could give you new perspectives and was mostly about art history. And has been what I was looking for, has been really something amazing to me. I love to study art history, archaeology, and Naples offers so much. So studying in the room, then going outside, looking for museums, looking for Pompeii, looking for Baroque, looking for medieval, looking for a little bit of prehistoric stuff. So we have it all in Naples, in the Naples area, surrounding south, north of Naples, and so on. So it's been really a pleasure studying. And then I happened to become a tour guide. So it's been almost the natural development of my studies. So I started in 2009, and I met you, I think it was 2011, maybe. I lost track of time.
It's about 10 years ago.
Oh, yes, 10 years ago. And I still remember our first meeting in the beautiful cafe in Naples.
Yes.
The must-be place in Naples when you go to Naples, the Gambrinus Cafe, that has such nice corners. And we were speaking about the villas of Pompeii. I still remember we were speaking about the Vetti Villa and something else also about Pompeii. So since then has been my job. People often ask me, is this your full-time job, as this was like just an hobby or something that you do on weekends. Now this is my full job, and I like to do this because I like to be outdoor. So take me indoor. So lockdown was a nightmare because I had to be indoor and I have to be outdoor and walking.
Sure.
So I was walking outside my building as much as I could. So I'm lucky because I can be outdoor, I can be in beautiful environments, and I can meet the travelers. So if I can travel, they travel and they bring me a little bit of their culture, the background of their country. So I cannot not ask for any better job, really. It's nothing better than doing this.
I think also for anyone who has any, I think probably one of the best countries in the world to be a tour guide is Italy. And it's probably the place where more people are searching guides to understand, because it is so rich and so many wonderful treasures from so many different time periods. It really is unique in the world. I wanted to also say that I wanted to ask also, just for people to understand, as you were talking about that, even when you went into university, you studied law. May I ask you, because I do know that Americans don't have this, but when you go to high school in Italy, even then, sometimes you have to go to a specific high school, the classic studies or engineering or tourism, like travel agents or languages. Which high school did you go to when you were younger?
I went to a more scientific one where they stress a bit more on mathematics, physics, and so on.
There we go.
Just a little bit, because then, of course, you have the classical studies. They differ very little bit. So we have the two main high school, that is the Liceo. So you have the scientific one or the classical one. So the classical, of course, a bit more humanities, and the other one a bit more mathematics. So these are the little differences. Yeah, my studies have been quite crazy, a little bit messy. I don't know why. I have been confused for half of my life. I had to become an adult to be convinced of what I was doing. So I don't like mathematics, so that's why then after the high school, no more mathematics.
And then you went to law, but then you changed after.
Of course, yes. But then you see at the end, it's like the cake finally
has come out of the oven.
Out of the oven.
There we go. That's perfect. But I think what one can tell probably in the first 5 minutes when they meet you is that you love to make connections with people, and that's truly what makes a great guide, as well as being a storyteller, is to be able to connect to people. And I really was so happy to be able to have you come and do this tour with us, because some of those people that were with us were my dearest friends. So it was great. Let me say also that talking about guides in Campania, I may have mentioned this sometimes in other podcasts, but every area in Italy has its challenges. But I would say, well, maybe also, we will be doing more in Sicily. They probably have a lot of challenges as well. But to be a guide in Campania, I think in some ways is the most challenging, because you have to travel everywhere around Campania. You told me yourself that you've also been a guide on Capri, but that you had to stop because you were getting seasick. But, you go from Naples to Pompei, or to, Paestum or Villa Piontis, it's just a lot of traveling back and forth all over the place. Whereas in Florence, you can ride your bicycle and you go in between the Accademia and Uffizi. It's a walkable city. And Rome has its own inherent challenges, but you're not traveling as much, or you meet the clients and then from there you take a car to go to Villa d'Este or whatnot. But I think that in Campania, many times you are expected to meet the guides at the specific sites and do the tours there. So there's a lot of traveling time for you guys to go back.
Yes, it is. There is a lot. Then the funny part is that then you learn the best way either to save money on the transportation, but also the best way to go. So if you're heading to Caserta, maybe you take the train. If you're heading to Pompei, you go take the bus. If you go to Herculaneum, you take the train. If you go to Paestum, that is one of my favorite rides, you take the regular train, And the train ride is so beautiful and relaxing. It's about 1 hour and a half, so it's not that bad. And the train ride is really beautiful. So then really this is fun. And then you have all these tickets because each company has its own ticket. So sometimes you have to be ready for different tickets. So often we have like a little bit of everything for all the tickets for everything. But yes, you're true. This is challenging, and this is the reason why we can be very tired at the end of the season. It's not the job itself. It's not really the heat, because then we get used, because it's part of the job. We can't complain about the heat or the rain because it's our job. I don't like to complain about that because I'm supposed to be in the heat, so no complaints. But of course, you travel a lot. You make so many kilometers in 1 year. And I live in Naples, so unless I'm working in Naples, but anyway, I have to drive everywhere.
Sure.
But then, yes, takes time, and often we go to Pompei and Herculaneum. That in summer are the most requested. So you have to add to 2-3 hours tour at least a couple of hours of travel.
Oh, absolutely. So, Francesca, now let us get into the magnificent city of Herculaneum. And many people want to understand, I think, what is the difference between Pompei, which is the more famous of the places, even though I'm not sure why, but Pompei and Herculaneum. What are the differences between them? And especially when you're taking people around, what do you think would the differences be, and what people should want? And then I have a specific question to ask you after you answer that.
So Pompei, yes, is the most famous, is the largest one. And I have to admit that if you really want to get lost inside the city, Pompei is the place, because it's so large and then you don't see the modern buildings. So you are far away from modern times, and then you wander around, but it's very big. Then you really get lost. Herculaneum is much smaller, it's so dense of buildings, such a small area. And they show different way of lives. So I always tell people you should do both, because they give you different things. So there is no way to me to tell you which is really the best, because it's like to say if I love more my son or my daughter, they are equally amazing to me. Herculaneum is a little bit more, is a little bit cozier, I think. You go there and you feel all of a sudden so relaxed. And there is one thing that I like more than Pompei, that I like all the people really to get focused about. When we enter Herculaneum, the view from the top is something breathtaking, something so unique, something that I will stay there and stare at the view for so much time, even though I have had the same view for years and years. Now I'm really used about that. But every time I go there, because there is one cloud, or there are two clouds, or there is a blue sky, or looks like it's going to rain, is always different. And you see the whole city with just one side, and this very low compared to your walking area, because the city was buried with more than 25 meters of volcanic materials. So it's impressive because you understand what happened back then. 25 meters of volcanic materials. The volcano on the background. So but the volcano, I like to say the volcano is the future, because we don't know when the next eruption will come.
Sure.
Herculaneum, the archaeological area, is the past. So it's there and just staring at you, telling you, hey, I was here one day, then the eruption came, and this is history. You can really live history. You can walk through history. And then in the surrounding, with the same eyesight, you can see the modern buildings. So that one is present. So you have past, present, and future with just one eyesight, something that you don't have in Pompei. So this is the little kick that Herculaneum can give you, a little bit more special than Pompei when you arrive there. Because in Pompei, something slow. You slowly enter, you slowly feel the place, you slowly feel the history. Herculaneum is all at sudden, is really, you feel drunk after this very first view. And then slowly you enter the city and you understand what happened. Also, Herculaneum gives you the idea of a more residential area, or I'm sorry, it's not the best way to say it. It was more a summer getaway. And you understand it was a quieter place than Pompeii. In Pompeii, you understand it was a very busy place like Rome could be or Naples in modern times. Herculaneum was the smaller town like Positano or Amalfi or Sorrento might be in modern times. And you have this feeling, it's something magic I cannot explain. Only when you are in the place, you understand the difference between the two towns. And then one of the magics of Herculaneum is the wood, the organic materials that you can see in Herculaneum, even though there is not so much left on site because it's some materials that is very delicate. So most of the carbonized wood is in deposits. So it's safe, never open to public. So you can go through YouTube, you can find some videos showing you furnitures, amazing furnitures, beds, a baby cradle, other objects made out of wood, well preserved because of the high temperatures they hit Herculaneum, and they were preserved almost as a fossil. To give you an idea, they are completely black. So the organic materials, including food, wood, and even some fabric got carbonized. But still on the side, you can see a couple of doors, very nice, with all the decorations, some wooden steps, some wooden beams. And this is something that you don't find in Pompeii. And I think finding some organic materials from 2,000 years ago that survived the eruption is something so unique and quite breathtaking. And often people, when they see them, they're like, oh, really? It's from the eruptions, they survived. And when you see the surprise in the eyes, or you listen the surprise in the voice, or people that you're guiding, you're like, okay, there you see, this is why Herculaneum is so special and magic compared to Pompeii.
Yeah, for me, so from my point of view, because I came to Italy in 1996, I remember specifically, even before I came, someone telling me about mosaics. I didn't know what a mosaic was. So I really did not have any background knowledge. So I had a Let's Go guidebook. And I went to Pompei first, and then a few years later, which was wonderful to me. I had no idea that there was a city. But the whole experience of going to Herculaneum, like you say, it is this vast excavated pit, and that you see that the modern city is around it, and that you see the volcano of Vesuvius in the background, very close too, compared even to Pompeii. And when you go through it, you see it, you get an idea of what it was, and then you enter into it. And define the wood. There are no other excavations of the Roman Empire that I know of that have pieces of preserved carbonized wood. There you see doors in the doorways. You know, you don't look at just the brick or the stone that has survived. You see these other pieces, and it really does take on a whole different effect, I think. And if you have, like for me, I personally feel clients ask us sometimes, oh, I would like to see Pompei and Herculaneum together. So whatever people ask, we're happy to supply for them. But I think if you were to do it, I would do them in separate days or in separate trips, to take them in, because there's a risk if you're seeing both of these places, you can get overwhelmed with sensory experiences, but they are very different, as you said. And even the way they were destroyed by the eruption of Vesuvius was completely different. And I'm very thankful because, again, these virtual tours that we do are eye-opening, and they're wonderful things to accompany with going to the place. In fact, I need to follow your tour again, but I remember specifically, and I talk about it on my tours, the carbonized bread that you showed that was found, the loaf of bread, yes. A common loaf of bread that would have been distributed from any baker in the Roman Empire. I mean, it's just like, where else can you find these things? It's magnificent.
And not only the loaf of bread, because they found I'm a very foodie person. I like a lot the story of food. Neapolitan food, is very rich in the whole region. I like the story how some kind of food or products they arrive to Italy, and Herculaneum especially can give us a glimpse of nutrition of 2000 years ago when we speak of Mediterranean diet, and then you go back in time, you say, oh yes, they really had a perfect Mediterranean diet. We know a lot because we have frescoes either from Pompei and Herculaneum showing this amazing, and of course I'm quite crazy about still lives from the 1600s, 1700s. So the one that were found in Pompei or Herculaneum to me are amazing. I stare at them. I like the eggs, the poultry, the rabbits. You see the anchovies in the dishes. So they really tell you what was on the table of 2000 years ago. So we have the frescoes and then the carbonized food from Herculaneum. Due to the high temperatures, we're speaking of about 400 degrees Celsius, that is about 900 Fahrenheit. So it means that the whole city, all of a sudden, it was in the middle of the night. People were hoping to survive the eruption. The people were still in Herculaneum, but of course they could not make it. So while their bodies, their flesh was like suddenly melted away because of the high temperatures, other materials like the wood or the food, the bread, but also lentils, chickpeas and things like these, grains of different kind, even fabrics, they got carbonized because of these high temperatures. Because of the so many layers of volcanic materials, all these carbonized materials, the carbonized organic materials, they got preserved. So no air, basically. So they did not decompose as usually happen. Maybe even in Pompeii, something organic survived the eruption. But then through the centuries, some water or air just decomposed these materials. That's why in Pompeii, it's very, very rare. They found very few bits of carbonized wood, but they found also some bread that was closed in the ovens because never forget the eruption started in the late morning. Usually bakers, as happens now, they start their business in the very early morning. So maybe around 5, 6 a.m., they're already baking. So the bread was maybe left in the oven. They closed the door of the ovens and then the eruption occurred. So the bread just overcooked for a very long time. So some bread was also found in Pompeii. Some of the loaves of bread found in Herculaneum, they also have something very special that is being stamped on top, a name. So we may think that if you ask for a very special loaf of bread, maybe with some special grains, some extra ingredients, and maybe some fruit or some honey, maybe you want your bread to be delivered to you. So how the baker can recognize your bread among dozens of other loaves of bread? They stamp your name on top, and they found some of these with a name stamp on top. So it's really fun because even this loaf of bread was telling us one of the many stories about life of 2000 years ago. You ask for your bread and you know how to recognize your own bread. So we know that bread was part of the nutrition. Depends on what you can pay. Bread can be very good or not so good if you go for a cheap one. Beans of different kind, green vegetables, olive oil, of course, fish, and especially in Herculaneum, they found bones of more than 40 different kind of fishes. So they had an amazing variety of fishes, shellfish. And when we speak of carbonized organic materials, there is something that for sure you are not thinking about.
I think I know what you're going to say.
So we are going through this with I'm going to take it at how do you say, large. So let's think of sewage. How can you get rid of sewages of different kind of dirt? So yes, they had sewage in the whole city of Herculaneum. Pompeii, only 1/3 of the city had been provided with sewage, while the whole city of Herculaneum had sewage. So even in your house, you can have some kind of a toilet. So it means that among the carbonized organic materials, they even found human droppings.
Yes,
so it's
feces.
amazing. Yes, they found those and they could tell what this guy had for his last meal. And among the things that they ate, we could learn that they ate whole fish, even the head, even the eyes, everything. So, and the head, we still say it's very juicy. Now we are picky, so we don't eat the head of the fish. But I remember my grandparents telling me the head of the fish is the best part. So you should take all the juice from inside. And I was pretty disgusted as a kid. And now we don't eat the head of fishes anymore. But I remember they used to tell me that even the eyes of the fish, they were rich in maybe proteins or stuff like that. So Romans 2000 years ago, they used to have their fish, the whole fish. So they were eating even the head. So there was a guy on the last day or maybe the previous day who had the whole fish. Then he had to get rid of something. He went to the bathroom. And he could never tell that in 2000 years, someone will find what was left of his last meal. So this is Herculaneum, these very special findings that only Herculaneum has. Pompeii does not have it because of the, as you were saying, the different result of the eruption.
Yes, it was very interesting. I don't remember if I had spoken to you about it, but I think I may have seen this either before or after I saw you, but a series of YouTube videos by Mary Beard had done some television shows, and they were wonderful because she talks about, she's very interested in the life of the daily Romans, and she talks about Herculaneum. She has a whole thing that we'll get to, but I remember specifically that she was so excited because she said it was like real Roman shit, and she was saying inside, and she's like, look. And she had some other scholar with her, and they're like, "Look, it's still brown," because they were down in the sewers, so they saw the walls. They're showing this stuff, and so they have bags of this, of human waste that was used for us to understand how the Romans ate in this town of Herculaneum, and it was very important. It was like an archaeologist's dream, I guess. She also talked about, and what is such a evocative thing when you enter, and I learned so much more about it from you, is the fact of the boathouses, and that people were trying to escape and that they were carbonized themselves. You just see the skeletons of them. Now there are copies there, but she showed one where there was a room where, I guess her point was that you had the slaves and the wealthy all huddled together. And then because Mary Beard is who she is, I guess, you see them taking out drawers in the Archaeological Museum of Naples. She's in the back rooms, and they show her the jewelry that these wealthy women were wearing in this boathouse. And she takes a bracelet and she puts it on her wrist. She's like, oh, look at this, like the idea. Could you imagine going to see jewelry from ancient Rome and someone trying it on? It was kind of shocking, but it was interesting.
Yes, especially as a guy, we always say, don't touch.
Exactly.
And having someone wearing the bracelet, you say, oh my God, she's touching and wearing it. Yes. I will kill her.
Exactly. You'd see the comments in the page. They're like, I was so triggered by her touching this stuff. But I guess they gave her permission because maybe one person, as opposed to 5,000 a day, touching something would be, wow, what a presentation of status, as the British would say, that she could do it. But it was certainly there was a scene because she was giving a great job talking about the gladiators, and she was holding a helmet. She was holding the helmet and putting it there. She's like, this is what it was like. But I really enjoyed these videos. But I guess tell us about the boathouses that were where people were escaping, that you can see right when you enter in.
Yes, it's something really moving. And it's something that often I have had two different reactions, and I like looking at people, how they react. Sometimes people are very interested, so they go through all these rooms, they take pictures. But also I've had people who were like, no, please, let's just keep walking. I don't want to see them because, of course, it's very sad. We are so used to those. Of course, we have seen so many times, even though they're copies. But they are speaking about the last moment of these people. Is that, anyway, is what happened to these people. And this is something that was uncovered starting from 1980. Is also part of the most modern, most recent discoveries in Herculaneum. And it took many years. there was this archaeologist whose name was Giuseppe Maggi, and he was running the archaeological site back then, and he was looking for the people because until 1980, very few skeletons had been found in Herculaneum, less than 30, and was very surprising. But he thought he knew where they might be. So, of course, he was thinking, what should I do in case of an eruption if I was living in Herculaneum? I will try to sail away because the city was exactly on the sea, and there was a beach that now does not exist anymore because all the beach and the coastline was completely filled with volcanic materials. So the coastline is being shifted away. So he was looking for people, and he was sure to find them along the beach, and he was right. So they started digging, and slowly through the years, they uncovered about 300 skeletons in those little rooms. They were maybe both sheds, we may think, or they were used for as a storage areas. So maybe where people were waiting for ships that never came, because at a certain point, two big waves sailing to Herculaneum was quite impossible, strong winds and big waves. So they got stuck there, and they were hiding. They were seeking for a shelter in those little tiny rooms. They were all stone rooms. Maybe they thought this is the best place to be. We are in this kind of shelter, we might survive. They could not make it because then the heat killed them. So keep in mind the high temperatures, the 900 degrees Fahrenheit, 400 degrees Celsius. And this was fast. And yes, you were right. Maybe wealthy people, poor people, whoever, they were just hiding where there was space. Children, adults. There was a dog. There was a little boy hugging his dog. And maybe most of them were sleeping. They could not, maybe they didn't feel anything. They could not understand they were passing away. Everything was so fast. It was during the night. Maybe the younger one, they fell asleep and they never just woke up. And then when you enter Herculaneum, yes, the first sight when you start the tour by the beach and by the seashore is the skeletons, copies, perfect replicas, so they're exactly like the original one. The only difference is the color, something that I have shown in my virtual tours with the pictures, something that you can never see because you never see the original ones. They are in deposits close to public, so it's really hard to see them unless they're out for exhibition. The last one that were on an exhibition was, I guess, is like more than 10 years ago, but way more. I think maybe 15 years ago, you could see a few of the original skeletons. The original skeletons are very dark. So they tell you the heat. So they were almost burned. They had cracks. So you can tell they got fractures, they got cracks because of the high temperatures. Skulls even exploded to the high temperatures. And the volcanologists say that even the liquids, the body fluids, were literally boiling because of the high temperatures. So, but again, it was fast. At least it was very fast.
One would hope that they died instantly.
Instantly, but it's something unique because only in Herculaneum you have all these people who died in the same second, literally, all of them coming from the same period, from the same time. And it's something unique. Anthropologists, they made a feast on them because when they were found, they were like, okay, now we can really study the skeletons. Of course, you have them also in Pompeii. But in Pompeii, according on where you were in the city, you would have been killed in a slightly different way. It can make a difference also if you were north of the city, south of the city, if you were indoor, if you were outdoor. So it makes slight small differences. Herculaneum is something unique. So it's the only place in the world where it is not a graveyard. So this is unique because it's 300 people who were killed suddenly, instantly, and they were all coming from the same place, from the same period. So for anthropologists, we're still going through the bodies, through the bones. They're still studying them because they're taking all the information possible. So the age, the height, the different kind of disease that the bones can show, the nutrition, the kind of water. We could even learn the kind of water they were drinking. There was a local water because dentists that were studying the teeth, they could notice some kind of stripes on the teeth that you cannot see at bare eye. You need, of course, some specific tools, but they could tell that their water was very rich in fluoride, the local water. They had strong teeth, very few cavities. Many of them, they still have their teeth. You can see them from the copies, from the replicas of the bones. So they have given so many amazing informations in the last few years. And again, they are still going through the bones. They are still studying them.
Mm-hmm. I guess to finish up our discussion today, I would like to talk about one thing. I went to Herculaneum for the second time because I loved it so much. The first time I took my parents, and I think that was the last time I was there since seeing you there. It was in 2001, and I think it was November. Because for some reason this was open, but as you pointed out, and I was so disappointed it was closed, but this is the way things are. Unfortunately, it happens sometimes. So the bathhouses that are right outside the city gates, and you get up to them, you walk by them. They were the most amazing bathhouses that I had seen because the interior is more or less intact from what I recall. And I remember specifically there was a pool, a frigidarium, or no, it wasn't. No, it was a heated pool because it had a lower disc cylinder shape. It was almost like a foot or 2 feet deep and about 5 feet in diameter. And the description at the point when I saw it at the plaque that was next to the pool said that it was made of lead, this like indention, like a little mini pool at the base of the pool itself. And so that they would heat it because the lead would be a good conductor of heat. And so it would heat the water. It was a heated swimming pool. I don't know. It was just amazing. Did you ever get to see that house, the bathhouse there?
Only once, but many, many years ago, but it's always closed because it's open on, in the last few years, I can hardly remember when it has been open. So it has been a few years ago on very special occasion like those National Heritage Days or something like that. A couple of reasons are sometimes they miss they don't have enough kind of guards or enough people to check inside because there are some steps because might be slippery. Now everything has to be super safe for people to step inside. So it's not a building where you can enter by yourself. And because there are so many other buildings that are open, right now in Herculaneum, you can enter almost everywhere. This is very nice because finally all the houses that are safe to walk in are open. So you can really do a lot. Up to a few years ago, you could enter just a couple of houses. Now it's quite spectacular because you have all the houses. We entered one that was just recently opened, the one with a beautiful wooden door on the side.
Yes, I remember.
A house that was just opened last year. So, or a few months now with the COVID, I don't remember anymore. It was a few months ago or last year. So it was something anyway, very, very new. But those bathhouses, they have been closed. They're always closed. So we really hope that maybe they can do something about them. So I know they're quite spectacular. You can see the marble, you can see the steps, the walls, everything was very well preserved. But at least there is one bathhouse in Herculaneum that is very well preserved also, and that you can see on regular basis. You have the women's section and then the men's section with the pretty mosaics. You can see the different rooms, so you can understand how they were bathing, how they were sharing their baths. So there was a common kind of thing that you do with your friends. In the male section, you do business. You can discuss about business, philosophy, politics. Women's section would be the perfect place for gossip, or how is your husband? How are your children? How was the party that you were at last Saturday? Maybe these the stories I like to imagine. These ladies were talking about, or did you buy the new jewel? Of course, speaking of the wealthier women. And yes, was something that you do with other people with nothing shameful. And in Herculaneum, there's also something that you can hardly see in Pompeii, because in Herculaneum it's a little bit better preserved, is a toilet. So we have been speaking about human waste, and there is also a nice toilet that you can see partially preserved, and you understand that we're doing things all together. So you're sitting next to your neighbor, having a chat and doing something else.
I remember you showed us the public toilets when we walked through. Is there a place what is your favorite place in Herculaneum to show, or at least at this moment, do you have a preferred place to go and show people?
May seem very commonplace, but is real amazing. It's the house with the mosaic, the Neptune and Aphrodite's mosaic is amazing.
It's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful. Yes, it's even the most popular house because of course has that mosaic. But it's surprising how small is the house, but how special is the mosaic. So it means that not always size matter, even in houses. And this is what you notice in Herculaneum. It's quite interesting. Compared to Pompeii, the size of houses on average is much smaller, because often they were second homes. So people were going there for summer getaways. So often the house is smaller, but does not mean that you don't pay attention to details, to decorations. And that house has this breathtaking mosaic. And yes, you would like to spend a long time just staring at that, but the room is very small, so you cannot spend so long time because there are other people in line. And then you have the details, the colors so bright, the tiny tiles. Your eyes just go back and forth from the colors, the details. And that one is spectacular because it speaks of the skills that they had back then. This speaks of luxurious things that they wanted to surround them. So it's like we do the same, but of course we use different kind of decorations. So really tells you about a house, a family in a simple house with a beautiful decoration in a beautiful place, a family that was experiencing their beautiful decorations without expecting what was going to happen very soon. And they will never think that in 2000 years, that decoration will still be there, because thanks to the ashes, got preserved. Because the ashes also did a very good job in preserving decorations, frescoes, mosaics, and the objects, the thousand and thousand and thousand of objects that you may know they're mainly displayed in the Archaeological Museum of Naples. They should be a must for any person visiting Pompeii or Herculaneum or both of them. The must then should be going to the museum. Then you close the circle. Then you are really happy and you have it all about Pompeii and Herculaneum.
Yes, I'm going to be I'm going to invite Lorenzo to talk about the museum, since he did a lovely virtual tour about the Archaeological Museum of Rome. Well, I have to say again, thank you, Francesca, because it was such a joy for you to take us around, and you were such a great sport because I didn't ask you ahead of time, but then we ended up filming, and we have, for our second series, we're going to be of TE destinations on our YouTube channel. You'll be part of it with Herculaneum, and you did a fantastic job without ever having any preparation. You just saw me filming you as you were speaking, and then we got to talk together. And I remember it was a very warm day, but it was very enjoyable. It was a perfect stroll to go around. And it was lovely speaking to you today. And I look forward to having you back to do more podcasts with us in the future.
For sure. Yes. Now that I've done the first one, I'm ready for all the other ones.
Oh,
I
lovely.
like this.
Lovely. And if you ever have any ideas, because I want to be talking about in future podcasts, we're going to be talking about famous figures of history. And we'll also have, so we'd have like specific arguments, as the Italians would say, or argumento, discussing certain individuals. And I think it'll be great to talk about new books that guides have read and talk about what's interesting about the books.
Great.
Yes. Anyway, thank you again, Francesca. It was lovely seeing you. It was even more lovely seeing you in person at the end of July. And I'm glad to see you back from your time in Sardinia and back to get ready to be working. And I'm glad to hear that you'll be working this week, as you told me. So
Thank you very much.
It was lovely to
Thanks to all the listeners, and Herculaneum is just waiting for you.
Yes, exactly. Ciao, ciao for now. And remember, everybody, if you enjoyed the podcast, please let others know about it. Please give us a 5-star rating and write a review to get the word out, because that's what helps get our company to be promoted. And I think this is a fantastic product, and I think many, many people will enjoy it as you guys have been. Ciao, ciao, everybody.
Ciao.
Thank you for listening to our TE Talks with Guides. We have a new episode every Wednesday. Please subscribe to get an alert when each podcast comes out. Rate us and tell people how you enjoyed it, and share it on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Most importantly, if you enjoyed it, send us a feedback about the show. Also, if you are curious about what some of these people and places we talked about look like, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch the video on this podcast, where we have inserted special images for you to further enjoy the story.